What's up, gang? Kawaii50 here with another fake Grand Order video, and it is time to talk about a servant you better have NP5'd by now, I swear to God. Utsumi, Erice. For multiple reasons, but we'll get into those in just a second. It's time to talk about the best craft essences, command codes, and allies to make your 4-star freebie who Voyager specifically requested you take with you, you monster. A valuable part of your team. So, hopefully, this video helps you out. And if it does, be sure to go ahead, like, and subscribe. Erice's deck consists of 2 quick, 2 arts, and 1 buster card with an AoE arts type Noble Phantasm. Her max HP of 11,991 is pretty solid, as is her max attack of 9,122. Her NP per hit is also fairly solid at a 0.63 on her 3-hit arts cards, and she has the ability to Arts Brave chain off her Noble Phantasm. Though that's a little bit inconsistent. We'll get to that in the Noble Phantasm section. Her star absorption is also fairly average, a little bit on the low side, but it's as you can expect from a Lancer class servant. Erice's first skill is Evil Spirit Medium rank A. This increases her arts card effectiveness by 20 to 30% for 3 turns, and also gives her 2 instances of Evade as a nice little cherry on top. This is the skill you're going to want to max first, as is Erice's primary source of damage. Her second skill is Der Freischütz Imitation rank B. This gives her 1 turn of sure hit, so evade doesn't really matter. It also increases her critical star gather rate by 300 to 600% for 1 turn. Now, this is mainly something that you're going to end up using in tandem with her third skill. Her third skill is a max cooldown of 6 turns, and this skill has a max cooldown of 4 turns. So for a lot of people, it's gonna be a little bit iffy on whether you actually need to sink anything into this skill at all. Odds are you don't really got anything that's going to be competing too highly with Erice when she finally pops this skill. So feel free to go ahead and level this skill at your discretion. For a lot of people, the 6 turns is honestly going to be just fine if you're low on materials. You can go all the way to rank 10 if you so desire, if you really like Erice. But remember, you're going to mainly be using this with the third skill, so time your activations accordingly. And that third skill is Reaper rank B. This gives her an increase to her instant death success rate, 50 to 100% boost. Think of something similar to King Hassan if you're a veteran player. She has a chance to instantly murder the things she's fighting. It also increases her crit damage by 20 to 30% for 3 turns, and most importantly, it gives her a special attack bonus against all servants. That's a 20 to 30% boost to her attack against every single servant in the game, which really helps Erice be a solid pick for challenge quests. This is a fairly unique buff. The only servant that ends up having anything close is Gilgamesh with Enuma Elish. So I tend to think of Erice as sort of mini Gilgamesh because of this skill. Go ahead and max this skill second for that solid boost, and like I said, remember to use this in tandem with that second skill. For Erice's append skills, we can actually go ahead and level 2 of them. The first being follow-up technique improvement, increasing her extra attack card effectiveness. This is going to increase both her NP gain off of her attacks, but more importantly, it's going to increase the damage. And when you get those bonuses from her third skill, dealing extra damage against servants, this can actually help you immensely in challenge quests. Mana loading is of course going to be our second option, because the starting 10 to 20% NP gauge, as I say in every video, is good on every single servant. Erice's Noble Phantasm is Ameno Sakahoko rank B. Now, this Noble Phantasm is fairly contentious in the community, and let me go ahead and explain why as I go over it. So this deals damage to all enemies. You're easily going to have it at NP 5, so it's going to be a huge boost. This also removes defensive buffs from all enemies, and it has a chance of inflicting instant death on all enemies. But here is the kicker. This activates first before any sort of damage is dealt. Now, if you're trying to farm Erice with Castoria, this is a problem. This is a problem if you're trying to farm with her. Since the Castoria system, those arts boosts, those NP gain boosts and all that rely so heavily on dealing damage and hitting that overkill so you can get massive NP refunds, When you inflict instant death, that means no damage is dealt to the enemy whatsoever. That means you don't gain any refund off of that. And overall, this ends up making Erice fairly inconsistent when it comes to farming with Castoria. So much so to a point that a lot of players completely ignore her when it comes to the system. Do I think this overall makes Erice bad? Not necessarily. Some people would relegate her to the dumpster solely because of this, but I do think she has a lot of value to offer in this Noble Phantasm. It's a fairly strong Noble Phantasm that can help out well in challenge quests, and consider on top of this, Erice has this special buff that increases damage against servant type enemies. So I would consider her more of an AoE challenge quest style servant. Think similar in the ranks of Gilgamesh and Romulus Carinus. And this value is going to be further amplified by the fact that, well, players that don't have a lot of options in their servant roster are going to find Erice insanely helpful for this reason. That's my spiel on that Noble Phantasm, so take from that what you will. Now, who do we pair with Erice to make her an overall effective option on your team? Well, she is heavily an arts type servant, so we are going to want arts type supporters. Tamamo no Mai and Caster Artoria in particular are fairly helpful. Even if you're not going to use her farming in the Castoria system, the amount of defensive options she's able to provide Erice in the form of those invincibilities is going to really help even in challenge quests. Now, beyond this, these are 5-star servants, so of course we want some more freebie related options, and of course some other options that may be a little more unorthodox. Let's go over a few of those right now. We're going to start, of course, with Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Now, even if you hate this man because of the werewolf game in Erice's event, he's still a very powerful option to pair with her. His first skill, Protection of Muse, is a solid arts type boost, but most importantly, he has the ability to decrease the enemy's arts resist, which will overall increase Erice's damage, and his third skill grants a large amount of critical stars on demand. And Erice does have the ability to crit on demand with the combination of her second and third skill, dealing extra damage to servants, so this can be very valuable. Our second option for a more freebie supporter is, of course, Hohenheim. Yes, Erice is a little inconsistent when it comes to looping, but Hohenheim is still able to provide some valuable options even if you're not 3-turn farming with her. The arts card effectiveness boost is incredible, and that NP gain boost does affect your face cards as well from Philosopher's Stone, so you can still get a lot of push from him when you're bringing him along in challenge quests. Caster Gil is, as always, a formidable option, providing a star drop rate boost, an attack boost, and an arts card effectiveness boost for all allies. I really can't go any more deeper into that. It's all bonuses Erice would love to have. And finally, for something to consider for the future, look at Sakamoto Ryoma Lancer. Now, Ryoma is able to provide a ton of bonuses to all of his allies. He can provide arts card effectiveness, critical strength, and an NP overcharge level boost. On top of that, he's also able to gain critical stars every single turn off of his final skill. So that is very, very helpful. So consider that if you are low on options, you maybe want to bring along a couple of Lancers to fight a challenge quest, because remember that NP overcharge level can boost Erice's instant death chance, maybe wipe out a couple of waves with Erice, and then finish the enemy off with Ryoma. They're a pretty good team. Let's look at some craft essences, starting with 3 freebie options. I do like Holy Night Supper on Erice, granting her the starting NP gauge, NP damage, and a critical damage boost. That critical damage boost can be very helpful with their last 2 skills, and her NP damage can honestly get fairly out of hand with the free NP 5 and the bonus damage against servants, so augmenting that can be a really beneficial thing for you to do. Meaning of the Heirs is also an excellent option, granting arts card effectiveness, NP gain, and a few critical stars every single turn for Erice to take advantage of. Painting Summer is actually going to be my premier pick for the freebie options. This is good on pretty much any arts damage dealer, arts card effectiveness, NP gain, and that starting NP gauge. Now, let's go ahead and start looking into the options that you have to pull from the gacha. First being Mark on a Smiling Face. This grants arts card effectiveness, NP gain, and a pretty solid NP strength boost. But if you want to know what the premier option is for Erice, it's honestly a little boring but still remains untouched. That is, of course, the Black Grail. That is a huge NP strength boost that's going to compound on top of that servant damage boost and that NP 5. You're going to be seeing Erice hit for big numbers if you chuck the Black Rail on her. And now let's go ahead and take a look at command codes. For a utility option, White Vessel's Command Seal or Code Cure are going to be my go-tos. Erice doesn't really have any options to cleanse herself, so if she gets hit with an unlucky status debuff, you're going to want to go ahead and remove that as fast as possible. Chucking this on, say, a Buster card or one of her quick cards can be a pretty solid boost. I do like Da Vinci Chan on Erice, granting NP damage up when attacking using the engraved card. You're going to have to use this before you use the Noble Phantasm, but the damage trade-off ends up being really, really worth it. And this can actually compound with another command code that I'm going to mention right now. That command code, of course, being the Wizard of Menlo Park. This increases the NP generation rate of the engraved card by 5% and also grants NP damage up by 10% for one turn when attacking using the engraved card. Chuck this on 2 cards that you end up using before Erice's Noble Phantasm. You're going to have a 15% and a 10% boost to that overall damage, compounding with the Craft Essence as well as her Servant damage bonus. You're going to hit whatever you're fighting in that challenge quest pretty dang hard. And finally, of course, if you still have it and can spare it, consider Wedge of the Heavens. This increases damage against all servants except those with the Numa Ailish nullification by 20% on the engraved card. Now, it'd be faster to list the servants that aren't immune to a Numa Ailish. That is how numerous they are. If you throw this on any of Erice's face cards, I would prefer the Buster card myself. You can go ahead and get a pretty excellent boost to her face card damage that ends up synchronizing well with her 3rd skill. Overall, gang, I do think Erice is actually a fairly excellent servant and one of the best picks to come out this year. I think a lot of people overly focus on the fact that she is unable to loop in the Castoria system, when in fact there are so many other options out there available to do that with. What I see instead is a sort of mini Gilgamesh that all players will be able to have access to. She's able to deal a bunch of increased damage to servants, her AoE Noble Phantasm is pretty great at hitting multiple servant waves, and you've got plenty of options in there for support in order to go ahead and boost her up with this upcoming arts meta. Castoria is still an excellent pick to pair with her, even if you can't end up looping with her. You can still have a fairly solid servant to help you in both story quests as well as challenge quests, which, let's be real, gang, these further levels of Lost Belt, they are pretty much challenge quests when you go ahead and get right down to it. This is something I'm not really going to budge on. I think Erice is an excellent pick, especially for newer players, and I think you would be foolish to skip her just because she is unable to loop with Castoria. That's my piece. But of course, I want to know what you all think, so let me know your thoughts about Utsumi Erice down in the comments section below. Let me know if you think there are any allies, craft instances, or command codes I might have missed. Let me know if you have any fun team options with Erice that you want to share below. And as always, since we try to foster a nice and helpful community here, if someone's got a question about Erice, assume good faith and go ahead and try to answer it if you think you've got the answer. We can all go ahead and help each other and make FGO a very enjoyable game for everyone in the community. If you want to talk more FGO, of course my Discord server is always open. I want to give a big thanks to the patrons on Patreon, subscribers and followers over on Twitch, and of course all of you here on YouTube. Your support is the reason I continue to make these videos, and I really, really appreciate it. Well, that's it for me, gang. This is Kawaii50, hoping you all have a phenomenal day. I'll see y'all in the next video.